Okay, let's get started. Good evening. Thank you all so much for joining us. We know there's a lot of ways you can spend your evening, and we appreciate you joining us tonight for the West Park Bandshell informational webinar. Because this is a webinar, your screen is going to be disabled for the remainder of the session, and you will be on mute. We have programmed in some live polling, so we will be interacting throughout the evening, just not verbally. Before we get started with the session, I want to go over a few meeting norms. Tonight, we are committed to learning and respecting the dignity of others. And in doing that, we ask that you are candid and authentic in your responses and explain to us your experiences, but in doing so that you are critiquing ideas and not people, and that you take a second before you submit your responses to use thoughtful language. This software that we're going to be using does allow us to monitor the language. So if we find any words that are used pejoratively or used negatively to label groups of people, we will begin to moderate some of those responses in an effort to keep this a constructive session, especially for our Parks and Rec department to be able to use this information as they go through this process.
Thank you, Michelle. So thanks everyone again for being here today. Just want to run through what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to do some introductions of the team that's been working on this project over the last year or so. We'll be running through the purpose of the meeting, why we're here. We'll give a little bit of background on the project of the Bandshell, the history of it, how we've come to where we are today. And then we have an exercise that we're calling Understanding Perspectives, which allows us to ask some prompts of questions and do some engagement via text or via smartphone or on the computer, which we'll get through that when we get to that point on how to do it. So real quick, what I wanted to say is that this is not the only opportunity that you're going to have to engage on the Bandshell. Currently, we are at step 1 in our first round of community engagement. And what that includes is an online survey, which in the bottom left-hand corner is a QR code. It takes you to the webpage that you use to access this meeting. So there's a survey link there. It'll be open through this month. We have our informational webinar tonight to talk about the project. Which it will be recorded and posted online. So if you can't stay the whole time or you want to share this around, please do so. We've been hosting pop-up events at West Park in front of the Bandshell. We've had 5 of them so far. We have more scheduled. Our next is Wednesday, the 20th of September from 8 to 10. We'll be posting our dates on the website for the Bandshell. We will also be hosting resident focus groups, so for neighbors that live adjacent to the park, as they have different experiences with the Bandshell in their backyard. So we'd like to hear from them. We'll also be having stakeholder focus groups, talking to those groups that have used the Bandshell in the past and others that have expressed interest in using them in the future to understand what sort of amenities, improvements, things they need to hold events at the park. After we get done with round 1 of our engagement, we'll be going to step 2, which will be evaluating everything that we've heard so far from this first round of engagement. We'll begin developing alternative concept plans, and we'll come up with 3 or 4 of them. We will come back to the community for our 3rd step, where we'll be sharing those concepts. We'll gather feedback on them. We'd like to hear from you on what those alternatives show. And then when we come out of that, we'll be developing a preferred direction, which we'll share with our Park Advisory Commission and City Council as we move forward on this project for a direction on the Bandshell. So I'd like to quickly just introduce our staff, or the team that's been helping develop this project. So from the city side, we have Josh Landefeld, our park and recreation manager. He'll speak here in a minute. I'm Adam Furco, the landscape architect and park planner. I'm being the project manager on this project. We have Michelle Bennett, who's our city community engagement specialist. She's helping with our outreach efforts. From the consultant side, we'll be hearing from Cheryl Zulig and Brandon Woodle tonight from Smith Group. We also have Jamie Burton and Adriana Melchior from Hubble, Roth, and Clark, who've helped do the structural assessment and some technical things with the Bandshell as we move forward. We have a steering committee that has helped us throughout this process. That includes Darius Bryant, he's our deputy park manager, Jessica Black, who runs customer service and was in charge of rentals for the Bandshell, Jill Thatchers in city planning, Jerry Hancock is our stormwater and floodplain coordinator, and the Bandshell sitting in the middle of the floodplain. So it's great to have him part of this project. We have Larry O'Connell from our Park Advisory Commission. We have Jamal Buford from the Ann Arbor Art Commission. And we have Marilyn Watson-White, who's in Ann Arbor Housing Commission. She's the supervisor for Miller Manor. So we would also like to have a thank you to our Park Advisory commissioners who joined us today and city council members. So thank you for that. Josh, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks very much, Adam. I just get an opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're here to do. Over the past few weeks, park staff have had a great opportunity to have lots of conversations with individuals and small groups at our pop-up events. It has been great to hear from so many people and hope that these conversations have been enjoyable and informative for those that have come as well as they have been for our staff. Tonight is an opportunity for us to provide and receive more information about the priorities, the perspectives, thoughts regarding West Park Bandshell to a larger audience. As mentioned, we'll be using a couple techniques to get that information. We understand that the Bandshell and West Park mean different things to different people. It is our hope that you'll think about what is and what's special enough about West Park and the Bandshell to make you want to participate in this engagement. Throughout our pop-ups, we have heard a lot of differing reasons and priorities. In those informal conversations, park staff have talked with residents to really dig deeper to gain a meaning into those feelings associated with those opinions. There's a lot that goes along with the Bandshell and West Park, and we're trying to figure out the reasons for what we need to do moving forward. So as you think about your responses tonight, please take a moment to really consider what it is that you value about and want for the future of West Park and the Bandshell when participating tonight. As the parks manager, I am responsible for keeping a handle on the current situation within our park system while planning for the future, as well as honoring the history and what has come before me. I am not sure if there is a parks project that encompasses this more than what the West Park Bandshell is. As West Park is one of 160 plus parks in Ann Arbor, it has a long history, and its purpose and activities have evolved throughout the years. Our staff is excited to hear from the community and how West Park can serve it moving into the future. We really do appreciate your being a part of this and look forward to hearing what you have to say. And with that, I will turn it over to the main portion of our segment and Brandon.
Thanks, Josh. So I'm going to talk through a bit about background on the project to kind of give an overview of some of the history of the Bandshell in the park, to get an understanding of why we are where we are today and looking at options for the future of the Bandshell. So as most of you probably know, West Park is located kind of on the edge of downtown. It's surrounded by the Water Hill, Arbor View, and Old West Side neighborhoods. It's bounded by Miller Avenue, 7th Street, Huron Street, and Chapin Street. You can see that the edge is not, the park doesn't extend all the way out to the boundary of those streets. So there are a number of single family homes and apartment developments that kind of surround the park and are directly adjacent to the park area. Zooming in on the park itself, today there's a number of activities within the park. There's the Bandshell itself, and then there's also a ball field, tennis courts, community garden, a parking located off of Chapin Street, a basketball court, and a playground. There's a number of entries to kind of access the park on all of those surrounding streets, and then paths and trails as well that are both an activity in and of itself for people to kind of walk and stroll, but also important connectors from the community to the downtown area. And so that also kind of serves as a transportation corridor. So a big reason why we are where we are today and looking at the future of the Bandshell is because of its location due to the kind of physical features within the park. I'll start by talking about the floodway. That's the kind of darkest blue color on the map on the screen here. The floodway, this is from FEMA's maps for a 1% annual chance event or a 1 in 100 storm. And so that is the area that water is actively flowing during these flood events. The flood fringe, which is the lighter blue on the map, are the areas that also flood during the flood events, but don't have that kind of active moving water. And so you can see the Bandshell is located within the floodway, and so it has that kind of flow of water during flood events kind of around it. Also, because it's in a low-lying area where water drains to, there's wetlands around the Bandshell that have existed partially for a long time, but also were expanded in a recent project that I'll talk about a little bit more later. You can see that the Bandshell is in that low-lying area. The dash lines, the white lines on the map show kind of the general flow of water. It all flows downhill, and then the Bandshell is located on a creek that feeds into kind of the main Allen Creek. And so this is a tributary into the Allen Creek. West Park, according to the Ann Arbor Parks and Recreation Department or unit, apologies, is classified as a community park, but it really also acts as a neighborhood park. And so it's somewhat of this kind of in-between park. When you look at the data of who is visiting West Park kind of by their home zip code, the data really shows that the mix of people that kind of go to West Park and travel to go to this park are very much so broader than just kind of the adjacent neighborhood. The first two zip codes on the list here, 48103 and 48104, are those closest zip codes to the park, but you can also see the red and the orange, 48197, 48108. That includes parts of Ypsilanti and Charter Township of Pittsfield. Also are 15% of the visitors to West Park. So that's also a pretty large portion of the people that are traveling to use this park. When you look at the visits and visitors by year, the visits kind of has ranged in recent years from around 26,000 to 35,000 people per year. And visits is the total number of times someone has entered the park. And so if you entered the park 10 times in a year, then that would count 10 times towards that total. Visitors are kind of the number of unique individuals that enter the park, number of people total. And so if you entered a park multiple times, you wouldn't be counted more than once in that number. And so there's about 11 to 15,000 different people, again, ranging in recent years, that actually have used the park. One of the things that we looked at with the data was if we could tell the impact of the closure of the Bandshell, and it closed in 2020 due to the pandemic. But because of a big influx of park usage due to the pandemic, the data doesn't really kind of glean any insights in terms of what the closure of the Bandshell did on the use of the park, because you could see that 20% rise in use of West Park, which was common across a lot of open spaces, because that was really one of the few activities that you could do during the heart of the pandemic. When you look at visits by month, the peak season is kind of, as you would expect, May through August. Depending on year to year, it may extend out kind of into the shoulder seasons as well, probably weather and event dependent. Then looking at the Bandshell itself in terms of its use, in the most kind of recent decade, the Bandshell was rented, again, from 2011 to 2019, the average number of events per year was rented out for concerts and music was a total of 6, 25 for theater, 32 rentals for camps, and 2 for other. So I think one of the things that this kind of data really points out is that the use of the Bandshell, while is more than just kind of concerts and music, there's a lot of kind of talk and attention that gets played to it as a music venue, but it also is really used pretty heavily by other groups, and even far more so than the concerts and events in recent years. You can see that the total rentals per year down at the bottom, 65 on average per year from 2011 to 2019, which is up from that 2000 to 2010 decade, which largely, as you can see, is due to theater going from 0 to 25 from one decade to the next. This is the bandshell as it is today. And you can see that it includes the bandshell itself and the stage structure on the right. And that stormwater feature, that's the wetland that I was talking about when I was talking about the park features that surrounds the bandshell. There's a plaza area along this pathway that kind of cuts through it. And then there's some seating for the audience terraced into the hillside. The bandshell structure itself, the front of it includes the stage and shell. You can see in that image on the left that there are some stairs that kind of get you up to the stage level from outside. There's another kind of set of stairs symmetrical to it on the other side of the stage. The other kind of main access points out to the stage are the doors through the shell structure. Then there's the backstage area. That's the enclosed building on the backside of the shell. That includes a dressing room and some hallway space and those kind of doors that get you out onto the stage. The bandshell structure did, when it was originally built, include a basement where there was bathrooms and a storage room in the basement. However, that basement was abandoned a couple decades ago, and it was filled in with a structural fill. And so, that is no longer a part of the amenities of the bandshell. To give you an overview of some of the history and the timeline of the bandshell, so it was originally opened in 1938. That's when construction was complete. Then I'm going to jump way ahead in time to events that are kind of relevant to the project today. So in 1991, there were improvements made to the interior and exterior of the building. And this was funded by a Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund grant. This is relevant because the grant still has certain requirements that apply to the bandshell today. It's not going to necessarily limit our planning and identifying of what the right option is for the bandshell, but it will be a step in the process to move forward with this project to kind of go back to the Michigan DNR in order to kind of get their feedback on what we're proposing. In 2001, so you may have heard that the bandshell had some historic protections for the structure. At one point, it was on a historic protection list. However, in 2001, a judge ruled that list invalid. And so all kind of the historic protections associated with it were removed at that time. The bandshell was not the only building that was in that historic protection list, and that was ruled invalid by the judge and ruled not to be a legal binding list. In 2009, that's when those stormwater improvements that I talked about occurred. And so that included expanding some of the wetland areas, partially daylighting the pipe that has the tributary to the Allen Creek along part of West Park, including around the bandshell. In 2020, the bandshell closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and it remained closed in 2021 after a structural assessment deemed that the foundations were a safety hazard. I'm going to turn it over to Adriana.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, so in the summer of 2021, because of the progressive worsening of the condition of the building, HRC was brought in to do a structural assessment of the bandshell. So we looked at the condition of the foundation walls, both above and below grade, and found there was extensive deterioration because of the high water table there, being that the building is in the floodway. So the water is basically washing away the mortar and concrete in the walls. And as a result, they're settling and shifting, which is undermining their structural integrity. And it means that they can't adequately support the load of the building on top of them. We also had soil borings taken in the area, and the soils in the area are classified as poor, which means that they can't support a building without the use of like specialized foundations, which the building was never designed for. So at the time that we did the structural assessment, we looked at both repairing the bandshell in the same location and permanently moving the bandshell to another location in the park. We estimated that the ballpark cost to just repair the shell in the same location is going to be around $2.5 million. And you can read the full assessment report on the city's bandshell project page. And I'd like to stress that those two options are not the only options for what to do with the bandshell. That's sort of the point of what we're doing today. We want to understand what's important to the community and look at all the options for how to move forward. So I'll turn it over to Cheryl now.
Great, thanks, Adriana. So we gave you a little bit of background on the meeting purpose and the project purpose, as well as the history of the Bandshell. So that's enough of us talking. We want to get your perspective. So tonight, the rest of the evening, we're gonna be listening and asking some questions and getting your feedback. And so in order to do that, we are using a tool, an interactive tool called Poll Everywhere. And there's two ways for you to get onto the Poll Everywhere. You can join with the QR code. So just, put your phone on camera and put that in front of the QR code and it will pop up. And right now what it should say when it pops up is it's just waiting for the WBP presentation to begin. If you don't want to use the QR code, you can also join either on your computer or on your smartphone. You can join on the web by typing in pollev.com/WBP, and it will bring you to the same series of questions. These questions are it's kind of neat, the program, because when we ask you the question and you type in the answer, you will see everybody's answer up on the screen. And so it kind of gives us a sense of what everybody's thinking, and we can share even though we're not actually talking. So I'm going to just give folks a little bit of time here to get the QR codes set up.
Carol, there was a request to repeat the web address, so I'll just go ahead and read it again.
Great.
It's Poll, POLLEV.com/WP as in Paul, B as in boy.
And thank you for correcting me, Michelle, because I said backslash. Okay, are we feeling like, Michelle, that's enough time to maybe try a practice question?
Yes, and let me just mention that if anyone's having any trouble, there is a Q&A at the bottom. So if you hover your mouse over the bottom of your screen, a little panel should pop up and it will say Q&A. This is where you can type into us if you're having any technical difficulties, or if you don't have a smartphone with you and don't want to go to this website, you can send us your answers through the Q&A.
Thanks, Michelle, for remembering to say that. That's great. Okay, why don't we go to a practice question, if we can go to the next slide. So we're going to just try a practice one. Describe a fun memory from West Park. For me, I actually grew up in Ann Arbor, and in the 70s, my parents would take us to Dominic's to get Italian grinders, and we would then go over to West Park and have picnics. So for me, picnics is a fun memory. And skating, I didn't know there was ice skating in the park. That's pretty cool. We were at the park yesterday and saw turtles. They're everywhere. That's for sure. And on this one, just respond once. You will see on some of the other questions you can respond more than one time. Yeah, Pokemon Go for sure has gotten people outside, I will say.
One thing to note, if you're still having trouble joining, the web address is at the top of the slide and the QR code is at the top right. So you can still join referencing the top of the slide here.
Okay, I think folks have maybe a general idea how to do that. City band concerts with all ages of people and ice skating. Is there still ice skating? I'm curious to know about that. Josh probably knows. Nope, not anymore.
No, Cheryl, there is no longer ice skating at the park. There was a rink at one point, and that was removed a while ago. So that was something that I learned through this process.
Wow, the variety of things. I mean, that's really interesting to me, just all the different things folks are doing in the park. That's great. That's great. Okay. Why don't we maybe move on to the first question besides the practice question? Okay, so when we're thinking about the Bandshell and, you know, Brandon mentioned all the different kinds of activities that, how it's being rented. The first question for you is, are concerts and events an essential part of the activities at West Park? Is it important, and is it kind of what makes West Park kind of quintessentially West Park? And so it's just a yes or no question. Let me get your perspective on that. And we have 35 folks, it looks like, on the call, so hopefully most people are able to respond here. And do want to mention that while these questions are short, you know, kind of short, your answers are kind of short. If you have not had a chance to go to the survey yet online, the survey provides a lot of opportunity to get into more detail on your questions. And so, or on your answers, I'm sorry. So please, if you haven't done the survey yet and want to share a little bit more, take some time to fill it out. It would be appreciated. Okay. Well, looks like we're seeing that the concerts and events have been really an important part of the activities at West Park. An overwhelming percentage so far, and that's good to see for sure. Interesting. Okay, hey, Michelle, are we getting any Q&A questions? Do you think anybody's having any difficulty answering questions?
I think that we had one person having some trouble who I think is now in, and some people are sending in through the Q&A. So I think we're good to go to the next one.
Okay, great. That's great. Okay. So as you think about, you know, we're going to be developing options as we move forward for the Bandshell, as Adriana and the team were starting to discuss. We'd be interested in getting what your thoughts are in terms of criteria. What criteria should we be thinking about to evaluate options for the Bandshell? And you can put in 3 different things. Same location, yeah. So go ahead and share your thoughts about important criteria. And just in case, if it hasn't become obvious, the more somebody says the same word on this, the bigger the word gets, right? So cost right now is a big word. Location is a big word. That means more than one, you know, person is repeating that.
And Cheryl, I'd say a lot of these are things like the flooding, the location, cost. These are all things that we have been talking about at our pop-ups. So it's kind of good to see that these are a lot of the same things.
Adam, I'm interested to know, that's good to, did you have a conversation? I see comfortable coming up several times. Have you talked about, is that comfortable, do you think, from a perspective of the attendees, like sitting out in the lawn?
We've heard both, yes. We've heard it's for attendees sitting there a lot like the seat location, how it is set up now. They think that's comfortable. We've also heard it from people that are performing on the stage, a comfort for their level based on times of day, where the sun is, things like that. So I'd say it's on both sides.
Yeah. Great. Looks like the importance, that the kind of history of the structure itself is coming up several times. Durability. So yeah, that's a great one, considering where we are right now, and the challenge of putting a structure in a floodway and kind of the resulting factors of that. So I see also multi-purpose, versatility, flexibility several times. So looking like, let's make sure that it's usable in a variety of ways, right? It's flexible, versatile. That's good.
I'd say history has been a really big theme through talking. Being a WPA project, it's got a historic value from there, but a lot of people, it's their own history to it as well. And so no matter where we go with this, I think finding a way to nod to that history and really showcasing that's kind of important to a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a good distinction, because it brings the memories of the space that you're using and the events that you attended. Okay. Anybody want to put any more? There's still some capacity in there if you haven't put 3 in. Better accessibility, I think, is an interesting one for sure. We know that kind of parking is kind of far away. So if you have some mobility challenges, that can be pretty tricky. And I'm guessing, Adam, that is maybe something that you've talked about or heard in the conversations and the pop-ups as well.
Yep, definitely. That is definitely
Was it
something that's come up.
More than just parking access in terms of accessibility? Were there?
Yeah, there was accessibility in terms of even walking there through the park. Just as the distance from one of the main walks, there's stairs along Huron and Miller. So accessibility outside of parking is just kind of how you get there.
Yeah. I see amplification. So again, is that feedback in terms of just making sure people can hear it, or not or things are too loud?
It's another one that we've kind of heard both, but I think a lot of it that I'm hearing is it's been nice for people that are up there. The way the Bandshell is designed is that you didn't need the amplification to get it out there. So that's been something we have heard. And we've heard from folks at the Miller Manor that they can very clearly hear what's going on, whether that's good or bad. But definitely that has been talked about in most of my conversations.
Yeah. Well, these are great.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you guys for the feedback. Very interesting responses. Okay, let's go to the third question. Again, in kind of a one word or briefly, what did you enjoy about past events and concerts associated with the Bandshell? Again, you can do 3 responses. Each person can do 3 responses.
I think community is a strong one that we've heard from a lot of people. They remember going to events with their neighbors and their friends. I think almost every conversation starts with they visited a concert here, and it was with the neighborhood people or their friends. And so I think that's a really strong thing to carry through.
Yeah, and you see that like the multi-generational, Adam, here that's popping up, so that's
Yep.
neat. Nature sharing. Well, to have it set in nature, right, is not like a giant parking lot that, you know, you're really out there in nature, so that's neat.
Yep.
Walkable.
Yep. And it's walkable to the neighborhood and downtown. It's pretty close to there, so a lot of people liked that it was a setting that they could get to quickly from downtown.
Mm-hmm. I like the air, just one comment just says air. I love it. Outdoors, spontaneity. Right. Non-commercial. Kind of fits in with the community, that community theme.
Mm-hmm.
And the friendly connections. Okay, great. Okay, we're going to ask another question in the next one. In one word, what did you dislike about past events and concerts? And you get 3 responses here. And you know, these questions help the design team understand, you know, what you're looking for, what you like, but also some of the things that are real challenges that we need to think of how we can address. Litter, metal. I don't. Oh, heavy metal probably. Sunny, so maybe too sunny, not enough shade.
That's one thing we heard
nothing.
from the sunny thing real quick. That's something that we heard from some people that had used the stage in the past, is based on the time of day, the sun blasting them. So something to keep in mind as we look through this.
Gotcha. I see a comment here about grass. And so was there maybe comments about like if it's wet or it's not always the best place to sit? Have you heard that, Adam, just in terms of?
Oh, I have not heard that one yet. So it's
Oh.
kind of interesting to think about as a negative. But that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess it depends on time of day. Litter, bathrooms, plays, enough plays. Maybe that's like, okay. NIMBYs.
So the passerby remark is kind of interesting because I've heard that's the first where I'm seeing as a dislike. A lot of people liked being able to walk past the Bandshell and hear an event or a concert that they weren't expecting, and then that turned into kind of a moment for them. So it's kind of interesting, but I can see why it would also be a dislike if they would be interrupting a concert going on.
So a distraction maybe, huh?
Yeah.
If and I suppose it depends on how big and loud the passerby group is, right? And what the concert or event is.
That is true. Because in the way it's set up now is one of the main paths cuts right through between where the audience would sit and the stage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and that's a design thing, right? I mean, so that's something that we could be looking at how to solve.
Yeah, definitely.
Bathrooms.
And there were bathrooms in the original, in the Bandshell, and those had to be closed due to some of the foundation issues. So that was something that was there. They weren't accessible, but we did have to shut those down at some point. And then the basement ended up getting filled in. So it was something we had originally.
Yeah. Okay, it looks like most folks have put their ideas in there. So that's great. Okay, let's go to question 5. In as few words as possible, what kinds of things would you like to see if concerts and events resumed at West Park? So again, 3 responses, and just tell us your thoughts about what would be great to see there. What kinds of activities or amenities or. local, any music, civic bands, consistency. I wouldn't mind peeling that apart a little bit, huh? Adam, is that anything that you've?
It's nothing we've talked about, but yeah, that makes sense.
Were most of the events free before?
I believe all of them were in the past. That's my recollection and reading through that was kind of a free thing. I mean, especially with the civic band and the penny seats, those definitely all were.
Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the comment with the smaller organizations, that's something we did hear about as well, because it was a stage where a local group could use it. And it was something they could put on for the park or people to come through.
I'm not seeing things popping up about parking or more parking, or I think that's, and I'm not suggesting that we need more parking, but I'm just food trucks. You can't go wrong with food trucks close by, right? That would be great.
Actually, it's come up several times. That's something that people did like to see, is like the ability to have food trucks, or where could you have them for events?
Yeah, you can see why that would be. That would definitely be well, a lot of the amplification I'm seeing, food choices, local, more frequent, diversity of offerings. So I think a real interest in kind of a broad range of kind of cultural offerings there, which is great. Safety, absolutely. Restrooms, absolutely. Yeah.
Say the local school productions is something. I think I had heard from a few schools that they used to run plays on there. And I think there was even a couple of graduating classes that walked across at one point, and those were things I wasn't aware of.
Oh yeah, I was not either. Not sending us to Burns Park. Harder to walk from your neighborhood over to Burns Park makes a lot of sense. Poetry slams. Great ideas here, you guys. Wow. Some larger venues, alternative stage. Excellent. This is great feedback, Adam, and it seems like kind of building on some of the pop-up conversations you guys have been having, huh?
Yeah, definitely. This is kind of great to see that these are the same kind of things that we're talking about. And I'm sure when we haven't gone through the survey yet, but I'm guessing we have a lot of these similar things that we can compare it against.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, water refill stations. That's, geez, it's so hot during the summer. That's a good one. The ones that have the dog dishes on them too, right? So everybody can get water. TED style talks. Okay. Okay, well, we've gotten some good responses. And again, this was just, really a chance for us to share a little bit about the project and get the feedback started. As Adam said, and Adam, I know you're going to go over them. There's many more ways for you to get engaged. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Adam to share that a little bit.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I mean, this has been really helpful for me to just kind of hear from you guys on these comments. And I want to thank everyone for taking their time to listen to this. And I would really love it and appreciate it if you could go. If you haven't taken the survey yet, please take the survey. And we'd really love to spread the word throughout the community to take it. The most people we can get to take it, the better. because I think for this project to succeed, it's really a community-driven project. So getting kind of the feedback from everyone is very valuable. I would encourage you to please stop out to one of our pop-up events. Our next one is Wednesday, the 20th, from 8 to 10. I'll be out there in front of the Bandshell. Also, just want to put in, we have a Love a Park Day at West Park this Saturday. So you can go out there and kind of help with our Give 365 team on the park. There'll be some more information about the Bandshell out there. Yeah, and then please just, we will use our social media channels and our Gov delivery to put out updates on the progress that we're making and inform you of important dates coming up. If you go to the QR code and you go to our West Park Bandshell page, you can subscribe for updates. So you'll get our Gov delivery weekly email, and there'll be a West Park section in there. And then I'm always happy just to talk about this. So you can reach me. My contact is right here at afurco@a2gov.org, or feel free to give me a call. Happy to talk about this. This is definitely, we are in this for the next few months. Hopefully we'll have something next spring to move forward. But yeah, I really appreciate everyone taking the time to be with us tonight. So thank you very much. And I guess with that, we will conclude our meeting. We'll post a recording of this meeting on the website as soon as we can finish it and get it kind of formatted. So I expect it to be up by the end of the week. So yeah, thank you everyone. And I hope to see you at the pop-up events if I haven't already.